I want to talk more about this and some other health topics. Dr. Chris Purnell, Regent at Large for the American College of Preventive Medicine. Doctor, always good to see you. What's your messaging on malaria specific to these cases that seem to originate here in the U.S., which is different than what we've seen in the past?
Good morning, Marni. Appropriate concern, right? And so because this is appropriate concern, what can the public do to remain safe? And what do we know about malaria? As has been mentioned, what is most alarming in these particular cases is that it appears that they occurred because of local spread, which we haven't seen in about 20 years. So that would lead us to question environmental issues. Is there more climate suitability that the host, the vector, I should say, the mosquito, the Anopheles mosquito, is able to proliferate in the environment, whereby human beings can come into contact with those mosquitoes and thereby being infected if the mosquito in and of itself carries the parasite. So what can a person do? Protective clothing in places where you know there are lots of mosquitoes, long sleeves, wearing insect repellent, treating clothes with things that would dissuade or discourage a host from being infected in the first place. So it's definitely appropriate to think about what's happening, but it is still rare.
Okay, and just real quickly, if someone does contract malaria, what is the treatment? What are the options afterwards?
Get to your doctor right away. Malaria is potentially life-threatening and can lead to death. Most likely, the persons who have been infected with malaria in Florida and Texas had a version that is not as severe, but it may be a version that can lead to what we call relapsing infections, meaning that a person clears the primary infection and then gets reinfected in the months that pass or even a year. There are oral treatments for malaria as well as IV treatments. That will depend on the particular host that the person has been infected with, and it will also depend on the types of symptoms that a person is displaying, whether severe or those mild flu-like symptoms.
All right, wear your repellent, wear long sleeves and pants if you can. Let's talk about the air quality for a moment. Right now, Chicago, Detroit, a significant portion of the Great Lakes are coping with some of the worst air quality that we've seen in the world. This is what it looks like in Chicago right now. The smoke is coming from the Canadian wildfires. Tuesday, the atmosphere, the monitoring service released a report on the smoke emissions from Canada, and it found that the wildfires have led to the highest emissions on record. The Canadian wildfires haze has even reached across the ocean. It's impacting the European coast as well. But what is your message, the impact that high levels of this smoke and these emissions can have on our health? Some things we can do to mitigate those concerns.
Definitely. If you are a person who falls in those sensitive categories, and those sensitive categories or groups are children, older adults, or people who have lung or respiratory illnesses or even heart problems, you should take precautions. Those precautions include not being outdoors when the air quality index has worsened, definitely not engaging in exercise or physical activity outdoors, and if you have to be outdoors, to wear a appropriate mask. N95 masks are appropriate, KN95 masks are appropriate as well. And when indoors, make sure that you have filtered air. So once again, we're dealing with this. We dealt with it earlier, just a few weeks or even a month ago, and just to pay attention when those alerts are released so that you know how to best protect yourself.
And the president is getting a firsthand look at Chicago's haze right now. On the bottom of your screen, you can see the president has arrived in Chicago. He's headed to the post office downtown. He's going to fly through those hazy skies in the minutes ahead. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.